G'day, film fans. I'm Dave.
I'm Jack in for Jeff tonight.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies both new and old with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right, and to make sure that we keep ourselves honest, we've turned this into a drinking game.
Drinking game!
Yeah. That's why
like. I'm here.
So, any lazy negativity about a film, if you say anything negative or anything stupid, you'll hear this sound.
Oh!
And you have to drink.
Drink!
And we have to drink. Everybody, the world has to drink.
Everyone,
So-
play along.
Yeah, pour yourselves a glass and we'll give it up for the films we love and perhaps a film that needs a lot of love this week.
Yeah,
Need
that's going to hurt.
Oh, yeah.
We're
this
gonna get
This was
there.
fun.
Oh
All
my
right,
God.
So yeah, we got a fill-in host because Jeff's grounded for swearing too much on last week's podcast.
Jeff's fucking
That's right.
grounded. He swore too much. His parents locked him up in his room. He's literally
Motherfucker.
with his family this week. Hello, Jeff. We know you listen to this. We know you watched all these movies. And you're so jealous that you're not here with us. We wish you well. But we are very, very fucking excited to have with us as a guest host tonight, Mr. Jack Daniel out of K104.7 from Charlotte.
Woo!
Jack, what's
Hello.
up, man? How you doing, dude?
Well,
welcome.
It's great to be here. First of all, I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Well, thank you.
I listen
Thanks.
every week, and I hate I didn't get to meet Jeff along with you guys because I'm a fan of the three of you collectively doing
he's
what you do.
Fucking hilarious, dude. We're going to have you back with all of us
yeah.
at some point for
and
sure.
I've been on the radio for so long, you're going to have to bear with me because in my job, I'm not allowed to curse and swear.
Oh.
Okay.
I don't
I don't know
worry,
why,
we'll
but
take that one.
I've got a hunch that you're going to be okay. I think you're going to be
The
all right with it.
FCC frowns upon it, so I've been conditioned not to do it. So bear with me. It may be later in the podcast before I start cursing, but I'll get
Yeah,
there.
I'm
gonna
pretty
be
sure you'll
great.
get there by the third one.
Great.
So,
Yeah,
couple
the
of
third
quick
one.
questions. So you've covered what you do, who you are.
Yeah.
Just what's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie of all time is The Sting.
Oh, that's a great
Sting.
favorite movie.
It's a great
Yeah,
movie.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Paul Newman, Robert
Nice.
Redford.
Hell yeah.
And
And worst movie ever?
the only movie I've ever walked out on, a movie called Rabid. Ever heard of
Rabid.
it?
And that was a trick question. You have to drink.
We just buzzed you for going to it, and we buzzed the filmmakers of Rapid. Yeah, that was anyone involved with that motherfucker.
It was so bad. I got up and walked out, and it starred Marilyn Chambers before she was a porn actress.
Mhm.
So
That's-
it was just
Wow,
just
how
horrible.
bad does
All
a
the
movie have
makings.
to be? How bad does a movie have to be for you to go into
For you to
porn
go-
after it?
for you to go the other way.
It's like, wow, the only step up from this is porn.
So that you just wanted me to drink. I see how you guys are.
Oh, that's what we do. We're gonna pimp you out.
We're
to
gonna
that
get
shit.
along just fine.
Oh my God. We're getting to know each other. We are excited this week to be talking about the movies of 1980 fucking 2. So let's just go through
Yeah.
some of the other ones before we get to our big picks. That was an interesting year. We saw some Titan Sophie's Choice, little Meryl Streep, Kevin Kline for you. The King
Yeah.
of Comedy, a more obscure Scorsese. Not many people still talk about that, but that is an amazing one. How about fucking Harrison Ford in Blade Runner?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
The
That was
World
a great
According
one.
to Garth, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, The Dark Crystal, Poltergeist, Tron, Gandhi. What a fucking year, you guys.
And we picked
Yeah.
none of those.
E.T., how did I? Yeah, and we picked fucking none of those. We decided on 3
We're not
movies.
picking any fucking movie that was remade and had the guns taken out of it and replaced with walkie-talkies.
Yeah, we just don't fucking do that. We saw what you did, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, you better drink. That was rude, dude. Not cool. I was scared enough as a child. You didn't have to do that shit.
Yeah.
All right, so we
But
chose.
yep, go.
Yeah, our 3 movies this week. We're going to be starting with, in just a moment, we're going to be discussing first up, The Verdict, Sidney Lumet's The Verdict, starring Paul Newman. Halfway through the show, we're going to be talking about the second movie, which is, Dave,
The
The
Thing.
Thing, baby. John Carpenter's
Yeah.
The Thing. Fucking awesome. Can't wait to talk about that. Kurt Russell, back together at last. I love him so much. And if you wanted to skip to the end when we are fucking wasted and talking a whole bunch of crap about a really questionable film accomplishment, we are going to be talking about Grease 2 at the very end of this podcast. Dear,
One of my favorite movies of all time. I'm just gonna drink now
That's
because,
for lying to us.
because I lied.
just fucking lie. Yeah, we also buzz you for fucking lying. But before we get to
Did I
all that
mention
shit,
how much I love Adrian Zemed?
oh, you're gonna be. I feel like you're gonna be gushing at the end of this podcast for Adrian Zemed. Before we get to all that shit, though, I just want to do a very quick round of shout outs. As usual, we want to thank our beer sponsor, who is a real man. He's not invisible. I actually know this guy. His beers are great. His name is Carlos Barrozo. You can give him a follow on Instagram at C Barrozo Bar 2019. That's CBARROZOBAR 2019. And as usual, the music you hear on this episode and every episode is provided by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. You can find all the music available for free downloads at soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist. Jesus Christ. Let's do a little bit of our, what you've been watching this week, you guys.
Yeah,
a little bit of what you've been watching. Did anybody watch anything outside of these 3 movies that is not fucking reality TV? Jeff, I just called you out. You're not even here. Jeff, buzz Jeff for watching reality TV because you know he's watching it right now.
That's for Jeff.
How about you guys? What did you guys watch other than these? Any TV shows? Any movies?
Let's see. I'll start first. I rewatched season 1 of Ozark just because I like Ozark so much. And then I went back and I watched. Help me.
What
I
is
just
it?
had a brain fart. You ever have those?
I mean, just once in a while. I mean, absolutely.
Oh.
Especially at the end of this fucking show.
I had a brain fart. It was Demolition Man.
Oh, hell yeah.
Where
dude.
all the restaurants are talking about.
Apparently, we're getting a sequel to that too.
I heard, there's a sequel coming. For some reason, I just enjoy that movie. I like Sandra Bullock because we went to the same college, so I have to watch her movies.
I didn't know that.
Fun movie.
It is fun, yeah.
Dude, I didn't know she went there. That's awesome.
Yeah, she went to ECU.
You guys, fuck me. I still have not seen Ozark. I'm like one of the only assholes that has not. Are you serious? I don't think we've shared that with each other because I'm so ashamed of it. I know. I've heard it's so good.
Jason Bateman has turned into such a great actor all around. I mean, he does comedy, he does drama. This is high octane
like his
stuff.
Baby, right?
Good.
Didn't he direct the first 2 and last 2 episodes or something? Isn't he like a director on it and producer?
Yeah, he's one of the producers and has directed a couple of.
He's a director on a lot of things now.
Yeah,
that's fucking beautiful. Yeah,
he's come a long way since Teen Wolf 2.
Yeah,
Teen Wolf 2. Buzz Teen Wolf 2. Oh my God, Dave, how about you, dude? What you been watching?
Well, actually, DC Fandom was on this week, so my movie viewing was right down. I tuned into a lot of that and got a lot of the up and coming projects. Oh my God, they've got some good stuff coming out. Games, movies, you name it. I saw the Batman trailer. Had a little reservation about Robert Pattinson as Batman until I saw this trailer, and I was like, no, we're gonna be just fine. We're gonna be just fine.
I've been hoping
he didn't do the I'm Batman. He didn't do that part.
No, but there's a line there, but it's not that.
Okay.
Yeah, they show it in the trailer, so look it up.
I need to check that out.
And
I'm not a vampire.
I'm sparkly. No, I caught Charlie's Angels, the remake.
The remake, okay.
The reboot.
Was that the first time you ever saw it? Oh, you're talking about the remake.
The one that came out last year and got panned. I mean, there's an actual review. There's an actual review in The Guardian called it a pointless, unfunny, brain-deadening dud.
Holy shit.
And I'm sorry, but that guy can go fuck himself. This movie was awesome. I totally enjoyed the hell out of it. Like, it's a fantastic movie with great action. Kristen Stewart's phenomenal. Everyone in it does a great performance, and there's some actual laugh out loud moments. Like, I laughed out loud at least 3 or 4 times in this film.
All right.
Yeah.
I remember thinking it was a pretty good trailer. I saw it in the theaters last year at some point. I was like,
it's a great movie. And unfortunately, as always, the critics got to it, and nobody went and saw it.
Where'd you see it?
Stars.
It's streaming on Stars. Okay, might have to check that out. Very nice.
I've never been one to pay a lot of attention to film critics. If I go to a movie and I enjoy myself and eat some good popcorn and have a good time, then that's all I care about. And I know, of course, obviously we're reviewing movies and I guess in a sense being critics, but when it comes right down to it, if you enjoy a movie, fuck everybody else. There, he did
it.
He popped his cherry.
Yeah,
he did it.
So excited.
Look, I totally fucking agree. I mean, critics, if we're talking about very serious end of the year Oscar movies, maybe I want to listen to what they have to say just to get a little more insight. I don't even know if I'm going to make a decision based on them. But if we're talking about fun fucking summer movies, spring movies, why are they trying to seriously write some feedback on Charlie's Angels? Let's just go see it and have a good time.
What did you like? It's go and be entertained. You don't need to bag the shit out of this film just to be edgy. It's like, and now I get in our final segment we do that a lot sometimes.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done that.
But this is like we're having a little bit of fun with it. It's tongue in cheek, but this was just mean. Like this review.
I can't get on board with just being super cruel to try to like shut down a chance for people to make a little money after they work their butts off for a long time.
Also,
But
like, if someone wants to come at me over my opinions on Grease 2, then they're welcome to.
Yeah.
And Grease 2 is...
I feel like that's something that like movie reviewers don't like lean towards.
Yeah,
it's like, no,
but it's also...
This is what you should think. Like, no.
But Grease 2 is also... Grease 2 is not going to be touched by... If we decide to talk some shit about the movie at the end of this podcast, it's not going to affect Grease 2. The way that may have actually affected the release
that is
and
true.
Experience for a lot of people who saw it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad you watched it.
We've read about those guys.
I saw... let's see. We were watching these movies, and then one night I just... after I finished The Verdict, I was thinking in my head, I bet you fucking money Tom Cruise was the same age in the last Mission Impossible that Paul Newman is in this movie. And I was fucking right. Probably. He was 58 years old when he did that, right? So 56, 58, I can't remember. So I don't know. I was just looking at that, and I saw fucking Top Gun on Amazon. So I went and I watched Top Gun again.
Didn't see Paul Newman strapping himself to the side of a plane?
No, they don't. They make him differently now, I think. So I watched Top Gun, Tony fucking Scott. That was fucking fun, of course. Little funny anecdote. I have known our guest host, Jack, for quite a long time. Him and his son and I are friends. And the first sex scene I ever saw was when we stole Top Gun from his VHS collection.
There you go.
We were like 6 years old.
I wonder what happened to it. I don't think you ever
we
brought
went
it back.
and watched it. We were giving each other the goose.
That tape was damaged.
Oh, yeah, man. Take My Breath Away still does funny things to me. So I watched Top Gun. And then last night I finished reading Dr. Sleep this week. So I would put the movie on last night and watch that. Had a good time. Mike
Dr.
Flanagan.
Sleep is a great movie, by the way, and it's a good book too. Yeah.
Yeah, I had fun with both of them. I didn't realize the dude, Mike Flanagan, who directed it and adapted from the book, is the same guy who did Haunting of Hill House.
Right.
So if anybody who liked that show, it kind of has that similar feel.
And then there's Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, good for that guy. Yeah, he did
hot.
a good job. It's available on HBO Max, and Top Gun was available on Prime, I believe, because I guess they're amping up for Top Gun too.
Yeah.
They're getting fucking ready for that Return of Maverick. All right, that is what we watched this week. We are so excited to move ahead. The first movie we are going to be discussing this week is Sidney Lumet's The Verdict. 1982, obviously. Paul Newman, Charlotte Rampling, Jack Warden. Who else? James Mason.
Lindsay Krause.
Lindsay Krause. Goodness gracious. What did you guys, anyone who wants to start with an overall impression? Is anybody going to get buzzed right off the bat? Did everybody appreciate this movie?
I straight away got nostalgic over the hand-drawn 20th Century Fox logo.
Yeah. That got me too, dude.
I was like, oh, I remember that.
Wasn't it silent too? There was no... Dun, 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 dun. I don't think there was the music to it either. I thought it was silent.
No, it was silent, and there was not a lot of music in the film at all, really.
At all.
Yeah.
Especially through the opening credits. The opening credits was all him playing the pinball machine there in the bar where he
that slow push in. Yeah. It's. I mean,
so did it work for you guys?
I do. It did. A lot of things worked for me in this. It's like you straight away established Paul Newman. He's at rock bottom, personally and professionally. That you have a great use of exposition without making it obvious in this film. Like they're able to move the plot forward and you don't notice they're doing it. It's very
speaking of the plot,
it's very cleverly written.
Let's just go ahead and set this up kind of gently before we jump in too deep. The little blurb on IMDb, and we'll go in a little bit further if we need to. A lawyer sees the chance to salvage his career and self-respect by taking a medical malpractice case to trial rather than settling. So we got Paul Newman at the beginning of this film, quickly establishes himself as kind of a washed up alcoholic defense lawyer, prosecutor who has not had a case in a long time, seemingly. His friend tries to throw him a case. He says it's this wonderful bullseye case. They're going to settle immediately. It's with a very powerful hospital, one of the Catholic St. Jude's hospitals in Boston. He ends up getting a little bit too involved in the case personally and decides, I don't want to settle this one. This woman's life was ruined. This woman was turned into a vegetable. Her sister and her brother-in-law bring the case to him as the people who filed this, and he decides he wants to try to take it all the way. Drama ensues. He has to fight the gigantic defense law firm, which is, tens of lawyers that are preparing for this, maybe the most powerful firm in Boston, maybe one of the most powerful firms in the US. He doesn't stand a chance, goes up against the odds and tries to have some atonement for his life at that time while also winning this case.
That's a great sequence too, when they show the two teams and they show him talking with the one guy that he has, and then it's a conference room full of lawyers for the other side, and it's like David versus Goliath and the Pope.
Yeah,
James
they're not
Mason
even sitting in
great.
James,
he's one of my favorite actors. Yeah,
James is fucking wonderful. Yeah, Dave, I know what you're talking about. They're not even in a fucking office. They're in the library.
Yeah,
they're in the public library initially, just the two of them. That's Jack Warden, right? His number two.
Jack Warden's the guy that gave
Mm-hmm.
him the case. Yeah.
All right, so I guess I wanted to ask you guys, because obviously when you watch a movie, any movie from this time period, but I mean, honestly, any movie from before 2000 at least, pacing is slower. Yeah. They are going to take their time to do, and because of that, there are different
this is a courtroom drama, so it's a courtroom drama, so they're going to take their time with it,
to get there. But even going in and out of the courtroom, it didn't, it's not rapid fire. It's certainly not fucking A Few Good Men by the time you jump in. It's not a 90s Shoemaker, The Client, or A Time to Kill.
It's not just the pace of the movie either. It's the tone of the color. The colors seem really drab compared to some of the stuff that we see today, and it has that gritty look that reminds me very much of what 1982 was like. And I found, and I've seen this movie several times, and the first time I saw it in a theater. Of course, rewatching it here at the house, but it just had that very, very gritty feel. We're not very technologically advanced. I can't grab somebody on a cell phone to get an answer to this question. I got to do the footwork. I have to use a payphone or do a regular phone call. And, I think this is one of Paul Newman's most vulnerable roles.
Me too.
He's played so many things where he can be a down and out character, but this was, when he was going to the funeral homes, trying to drum up business and handing the cards to the bereaved. I mean, it was just, you felt bad for him and the people that he was trying to get business from,
Yeah.
It was just really well done. And
I'm glad
is his name pronounced Sidney Lumet? Because I've always
Lumet?
I've
always
called him Cindy Lumet, but that's just me. I'm from Concord.
I've heard Lumet. I've heard, no, I mean, you know what, Sydney, if any descendants
you
of
said Lumet, and I think that sounds very appropriate. Let's go with
funny.
that.
Just to bring up the thing in the funeral homes where he's going around giving out cards to people who've just lost someone, saying, "I can help you." And I've spoken a lot about the save the cat moment as a writing technique, where you have the hero of the story do something good. This is the opposite of that technique, and it works just as well. Where you have the hero, or the eventual hero of your story, do something so fucking despicable that his redemption means more at the end.
Yeah, this is the kill the cat moment.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the step on the cat moment.
I mean, Jack, I'm glad you said that about the his performance, and I think Paul Newman has definitely played some depressed, you said down and out characters. I feel like a lot of those famous ones, Luke, Hud, he's so cool. He's just so inherently cool that even with those characters, when he's supposed to be depressed, he still like has control over his, it's almost like it's a choice in those movies for that character to be choosing a life that makes him feel that way and act that way. Whereas the verdict, he is broken in this.
He was so desperate in this movie, when he's sitting in the Monsignor's office or whatever, debating, he wanted to take that check for $210,000 so badly. He didn't know what to do because he thought it was like a small win. But then, he caught himself realizing that, this is worth more. Her life after what happened to her, this is worth more, and I'm going to fight for it. He had a little come to Jesus moment there.
That moment and the moment just beforehand as well, and he does it again later in the film, where he manages to communicate the fact that he's making a decision without saying a goddamn word.
I was going to ask you if it worked for you. Did the photograph
Absolutely.
epiphany work for you? Yeah.
Every time he does it, it works perfectly. Like you can see his thought process on his face, and that's what makes a good actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this moment for anyone who hasn't seen this, and obviously as always, spoiler alerts, go fuck yourselves, watch this movie. Anyway, there is a moment where he goes to visit the woman
about
who
our
is,
audience.
he goes to visit the woman who's the paraplegic the first time, and he doesn't even really look up. He's walking around, he finds her chart. You know, she's a catatonic vegetable on the bed. He doesn't even really look at her. He just sits down, he starts making his notes. The second time he goes back, the moment we're talking about, or leading up to what we're talking about, he has to take some pictures of her to go into the settlement meeting because he wants to use that as leverage to show the hospital and the defendants, look, this is what you've done to her. While he's taking the pictures,
Polaroids, I might add.
Polaroids. Sidney Lumet, whatever, Lumet, he decided to let Paul take the pictures slowly, just two angles, and then he sets them down to bed, and you watch in real time as these photos develop. And then it cuts to Paul, and he just has this moment that we're discussing where he realizes for the first time, I love it, it's one of my favorite meta things, Sidney realized what he was doing with cinema, with Paul capturing and having to actually look at her. This kind of person that most of the time, we do not look at people like that, you guys. We choose to not see people who are that fucked up, who have been that hurt. Society doesn't want to know about them. We want them to settle out of court. We don't want to talk about it. He has to look at them. And then Sidney Lumet makes you look at it. And then it cuts to that close-up of Paul. And you're right, dude. Nothing needs to be fucking said. We are right there with him. He takes his time. And then it leads to this beautiful sequence.
And then you get the inverse of that when he's sitting there talking to them and he wants to take that money, but he can't. He realizes that money will pull him out of the holes he's in, but he just can't do it. He'll lose his soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
so there's
another one at the end of the film when he goes to meet the woman who is his girlfriend in the hotel as well, which I'll talk about later.
Yeah, I want to get into the whole Charlotte Rampling character because
Let's do it, dude.
But I'll tell you one thing, like this really puts into perspective. I think this was like the end of an era in cinematography techniques because like this was a lot of standard, a lot of standard panning cameras and a lot of answering shots and stuff like that. They really only moved the camera once or twice along a track, and I feel like they were long shots that let you embrace the performances and stuff. And it's like you don't see that anymore because now they have to, make something flash or change a scene to hold people and stop them pulling their phones out of their pockets.
Exactly. Yeah. So I want to be specific about this. I watched this with my parents and my brother-in-law, and we were all chit-chatting about it afterwards. And I was curious if they felt like it was too slow, and they all still enjoyed it. But as we're saying right now, they noticed that it was slower, and they all kind of started talking about how they felt like as soon as something would happen at the end of a scene or a sequence that you would, in a normal, like a movie that's made today, that would create momentum. And we would use that to lead us into a cut to another momentous moment. But they take you right back to that slow. And I appreciate it. Again, you're going to have to, if you're not used to this kind of pacing, you might have to work for it. You probably should, because that is probably the most realistic lawyer story that I've seen in a long time. It doesn't feel like, I love Aaron Sorkin, but it doesn't feel like chop, 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 dialogue, few good men, we're there. It will feel like we made this breakthrough and then we are back to square one. We're going to have to actually walk and travel and interview this person. And it's going to feel like we're nowhere. And then we're going to get something and all over again. So it's I really appreciated that it did that with the editing.
It's like the subject matter is so heavy that by the movie being so slow in tempo, it makes it sink in a little bit more because, the uncomfortable scenes, you sort of want them to be over so you can feel better, and it won't let you do that. It just keeps you in the moment of sadness just a couple of beats longer. And that's the difference in a movie made in 1982 versus what we have today. Yeah.
You're right. And the weight. I like what you said about, just real fast, Dave. You were talking about the color earlier. And then Dave, you were just talking about the cinematography. All of these things are informed by Paul's character. I felt like I was in this dark, heavy, hungover place even though he was trying to crawl out of that space, he had created that life for himself. And there was just this darkness that he was traveling around in. The only light in that story was the hope that he had to actually try to find some redemption. And it just kept getting cut back and cut back and cut back. So I felt like aesthetically as well, technically, aesthetically, everything was so informed. You just do not see stories that are that connected in anymore from all the elements. And I think you need directors like this and actors like this who understand it's going to do something unique. Again, I'm trying to think of another courtroom drama that has this kind of that left this kind of impression on me with the stuff we're talking about. Not just a good quote courtroom drama, but like something that has this kind of weight to it.
Primal Fear.
Maybe.
Oh fuck, Primal Fear is wonderful. Yeah. Good call. Thank you.
Similar subject matter too.
Similar aesthetic, similar color scheme. Really draft.
Did the
color
sun ever
sucked
shine in
out.
the verdict? Did you ever see the sunshine, or was everything gray and snowy? Even when he went to New York to visit Caitlin Costello in the schoolyard, it was just dark and gray, and everything was just overcast. The whole movie, which made the tone even heavier to me. Because
yes, no, I totally agree. Dave, what were you going to say? I feel like I cut you off.
I would say the couple of fun things I noticed when he was looking for his witness and he went to the doctor's house. And he gets out of the cab and stands there for a second. Was it just me, or did they mimic the Exorcist shot there?
Kind of looked like it, didn't it?
Gets out of the cab, he's standing in the light, he poses for a second, then he moves to the door. I was like, that's the Exorcist shot.
I think he was on the end of the sidewalk, though, right? He walked like all the way up the sidewalk.
I didn't notice that, but I'm going to go watch it again.
It's soon after straight after he gets out of the cab, he just stops for a second.
I wanted to point this out that
the only
obviously
thing missing was the fog.
Before, hopefully this will lead us into talking about Charlotte as well, but the performances in general, again, the way Sidney Lumet chooses to capture people, and I think this is true with most of his work. He came about in television in the 50s and 60s and then started making movies, and he's made amazing movies all the way up until he died in the 2000s. And he kept doing coverage like you're talking about, Dave. He adapted with the times a little bit, but I think he came about, and this is why I love the directors from that era so much, at a time when the acting characters informed everything and they drove the story and they drove the way that you should film it. So, yes, there are movies from older golden age of Hollywood, 50s, 60s, 70s, that use a lot of dubbing. There are definitely movies that do that. But there are also directors like him and movies like this that, because they had the luxury is probably not the right word, but because they chose to cover scenes the way they did, actors got to act. They got to record on-set dialogue, take their time, and actually get the nuance of that. So it didn't feel so moment to moment with the way they were cutting it in between tights and close-ups, and you were wondering why it sounded a little bit different in one shot. You got to actually see actors play an entire scene. That moment at the very beginning when Jack Warden comes in after Paul Newman has trashed his fucking office, and he picks him up and puts him on the couch and he gives him the whole monologue, I can't do this shit anymore monologue. That whole thing is one fucking take. And you get to just see these two powerhouses putting on a show for you, and it's good because you don't even think about the fact that they haven't cut. And we just never, ever, ever see that anymore. And it's almost so rare nowadays that you almost notice it nowadays. It's almost like, oh, that director was trying to do something intentional with this long take. It kind of made me sad because you just don't really get to see. I'm sure there are actors that are that good now for sure. And I don't think we get to see them stretch their legs the way they got to in the 70s and 80s and 60s.
Here's another courtroom drama for you. And Justice for All. Remember that?
Justice for All.
Al Pacino.
Yeah, that one's fucking wonderful.
Jack Warden was in that, and that's what
I'm out of order. You're out of order. Let's talk about fucking Charlotte Rampling. I've always loved her. I fucking love that woman. 44 years, a couple years ago. She's fucking amazing, and she's been great in everything I've ever seen. I did not know she was in this movie.
The scene I'm talking about at the end, near the end, where he goes to, like, basically it turns out there's a betrayal, and he finds out about the betrayal just beforehand, before he goes to meet her, and he walks in, he doesn't say a thing.
Doesn't have to.
It's just on him, and he just communicates to her that I know, and then it cuts to her, and she does the same thing back to him. It's like, oh God, he knows what's he gonna do, and up until that point, it's a phenomenal performance, and I really wish he hadn't punched her in the face at the end of that, because it just fucking ruined it for me.
Oh, did it ruin it for you?
It was very
Yeah, there was
uncomfortable.
no
It
need
was
for
an
it.
uncomfortable scene.
It is an uncomfortable scene. I know it's a different time. It
The
didn't.
scene would not have suffered if it didn't have it.
Now, he could have just looked at her, you know,
And walked away.
and walked away.
Yeah.
But he popped her, and you know,
And you
I
couldn't even
just grew
tell-
up. You never hit a woman. You just don't do it. You turn and you walk away. And
Yeah.
but you know, we have all these movies nowadays with females kickboxing and superheroes, and they're kicking everybody's ass, and they're getting punched in the face. Maybe you're not seeing all the blood, but what's so different about that is that, you know, she was standing there, defenseless, and he just reared back and cold cocked her, and it's just
terrible.
You know, it was just awful. I had the same feeling the first time I saw that movie, as Dave said he had. You just thought, you know, that wasn't necessary to make the point that she had done something so bad.
Especially at that point, just before, like, this happens just before, like, the climax of the film.
Yeah.
So you've literally made everyone hate the main character a little bit inside.
Yeah.
For a modern audience. So for a modern audience, that it's not going to work, like that particular moment.
No,
but the rest of the
of
film
course
has some phenomenal.
I know what you mean, but I'm still
performances.
going to use the time capsule argument. Like, of course it was terrible, and he should not have done that. And structurally, I don't know if it. I wonder if they asked themselves, because we're going to do that moment at the end in the outside the actual courtroom in City Hall, where we just look at each other across the place, and then she leaves. I wonder if they thought we got to have some kind of something has to climax here in this first scene when he confronts her. But I ultimately thought, Dave, that they wanted us to feel like this guy isn't a hero. He is a broken human being that was brought to a place where he did something that brought him back down to, he lowered his quality in our eyes. I think they wanted us to lose a little respect for him in that scene. I don't think that was good for you. You punched that fucking woman. I don't think we were supposed to feel that way.
No.
Yeah, no.
Even then in 1982, I don't think that's what Sidney Lumet wanted.
It's like his down and out character was about to be redeemed.
Yes.
And they didn't want him to be completely redeemed by winning this case. So they pulled him back and made him a little bit disgusting by what he did.
I think there's an addict's desperation that I was sensing. There's like a creepy crawly thing that I was sensing in his character. And I still, throughout the entire fucking movie, was not 100% sure why he was fighting so hard for this case. I wanted to believe that he was trying to do the right thing. And then, of course, coupled with that, you want to believe that he was falling in love with Charlotte Rampling's character and that love was going to be the ultimate redeeming factor. And I think this was very precisely supposed to be. They were like, how do we make sure that they don't think he's a great guy by the end of this, that he was just trying to do better than what he's usually done? And I know it's terrible. I'm not disagreeing with you, but it was extremely effective. I was very conflicted by the end of this film for how I felt by him because he punched that fucking woman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it was bad placing of that scene to have that at that point of the film.
Because her
That's
character her character wasn't loud, obnoxious, violent in any way. You know, she did something very despicable and underhanded, but she was not a character up until that point that you hated. You know, she was a character that you were pulling for she and Paul Newman to get together. And then when she betrayed him, and by the way, when James Mason was about to hand her the check in his office fixing a drink, when I was watching the movie for the first time, I thought it was going to be Jack Warden that was sitting in that seat that was getting the money. I didn't expect it was going to be her. And so I was completely blindsided by the way that, you know, took a turn.
Me too.
I knew somebody was betraying him, but I didn't peg her for it because she had just met him. And that didn't make sense to me until after it happened.
I fucking hated her. And again, I would be totally fine if there was not a violent strike against a woman in this movie. That is, I'm not defending that at all. Of course, that is fucking uncalled for all the time. Conflict resolution, folks. However, there was that look in her eyes and that final close up before he cold clocks her and she doesn't move him. He winds up and hits her. She sees it coming. I think part of her wanted to get some kind of punishment, maybe not physical, but she knew what she was. She fucking hated herself.
Yeah,
in that
for what
moment.
she had done. Yeah.
That's
She
fair
knew it.
because she did just stand there and take that
She
punch. Like it
stood there.
That's fair.
The guy got down. Now, what bothered me even more, if we're going to dissect this moment, is that none of the men in the room grabbed Newman. As soon as it was over, they all just kind of walked up to him and like they were checking to see if she was okay, but no one fucking grabbed him and was like, "Don't fuck! What the fuck are you doing? Get out of here! You don't hit
They
that
did
woman."
kind of pull him back a little bit after she said she was still on the floor and she said, "Don't touch him, leave him alone." And so they had sort of grabbed him by the shoulders.
That's true. They grabbed him
make
a
sure,
little bit.
Yeah, to make sure he didn't go any closer to her. But it was
Yeah.
it was just
and she
a
said,
very,
"No, you're totally right." I'm glad she says, "Don't touch him, leave him alone." So it's fucked up. But I think it was, if it was parallel to as fucked up as the situation was, and then she has that line again, as common, moviegoers nowadays, we might feel a little uncomfortable with it, but it didn't ruin it for me. But I know what you mean, Dave. I totally feel what you mean. It was very hard to watch. It was hard to watch.
It didn't totally ruin it for me. It made me feel uncomfortable. I guess it was supposed to. And I guess it really does reinforce that these are humans who are not doing well.
Yeah.
Like they're not doing they're not living their best life. There was no best life in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So last thing I want to talk about real fast,
Mm.
and then we'll wind this up. I wanted to ask you guys what you felt about the judge and
what an
his relationship to the defense attorney,
That judge
and how
was the
that,
biggest
if you thought
asshole.
that, yeah. So what is that supposed to be? Did you feel like there was a bigger commentary on the justice system and money?
I mean, he was in their pocket from the get-go is the impression I got.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
and they telegraphed it. And in like everyone else was, a lot of the other performances were subtle. A lot of the other movements in the script were subtle. But this judge was just fucking out there. And if this didn't make kicking judges in the nuts a national sport, nothing would, quite frankly.
And what was he said? If you're going to interview my witnesses, try not to lose my case for me. It was a great line.
Yes. Fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
I've
That
never
was a
seen
good
that
line.
before.
Yeah.
I've never seen a judge ask a question before. I'm not a lawyer, of course, but I didn't know that was a thing. I knew they could clarify stuff, but I had never seen that before. That was very effective.
He just took over the examination, and that was just. But it was obvious that the big law firm that represented the hospital was someone who he had come in contact with and known and respected them and their work. So therefore, he was on their side and certainly not on Paul Newman's side.
trying to get him to settle in the first scene.
It was a great performance by that guy because he to play a character that people are going to hate is very, very hard.
And the comb over didn't help. That huge comb over didn't help.
I mean, but that's what I'm saying.
Does.
They cast a guy who looks kind of Weasley, and it was a Weasley character. But you're right, Dave. There was enough nuance there that we all knew how we were supposed to feel, but it didn't seem overbearing. It didn't seem too indicative. I still felt like I was like, how is this a real thing in the real world?
Also, the way he carried himself and the hair and everything, he kind of reminded me of the early pilgrims, the devout religious,
the Puritans.
The Puritans.
The Puritans.
Yeah,
that's what he reminded me of, the way he was set up.
And with this holier than thou sort of air about him. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't.
The final thing for me with that was the way he navigated in the courtroom when the photocopy of the original entry data from the hospital that showed she had eaten 1 hour ago.
Mm-hmm.
The way he went, everything about that, the way he performed it, the scene, the way James Mason was arguing with him. The judge was initially thinking this will be admitted as evidence. The precedent came in from James Mason, and you just saw the man. It didn't even feel like they had already shook hands on a certain price. It was just a given that we are going to influence your decisions, and you cannot make your own decisions.
I'll cock block them whenever I can.
Yeah, to make this go
and then
away.
Paul Newman fucking, that scene right after that when they went back there and he fucking screamed at him. That was probably my favorite scene in the whole movie when he finally lost it.
That had my attention a lot.
To me, though,
fun, happy discovery. Actually, when I was searching for this film, just to sidebar a little. I was discovered on Stars. I don't know why it turned up in the same search, but they have the entire series of Knight Rider.
You said The Verdict into your Apple TV remote, and stars brought up.
I put it in stars. I said The Verdict, and Knight Rider came up.
That's hilarious. All right. So, any final thoughts? The Verdict is fucking beautiful. I loved it.
It was
Any
a great
final
movie,
thoughts from you guys?
and the lady who played Caitlin Costello, Lindsay Krause,
Oh, yes.
she was the wife of the screenplay writer David Mamet.
Oh wow! And this was an early Mamet script, which I loved.
And I thought she was great, and I thought she looked familiar when I'm watching the movie again, and where do I know her from? And then of course I ran an IMDb on Lindsay Krause, and she was in All the President's Men. She was in The Arrival. Did you ever see the sci-fi The Arrival with Charlie
from
Sheen?
1996? Yeah, Charlie Sheen. Yeah.
She played like a doctor or something like that, a biologist, but it was a great movie.
Charlie doesn't really act in that. He just plays himself.
Oh, hey.
It worked. It worked, Dave. You fucking drink your beer.
I mean,
I'm running low, guys.
Yeah, I'm already on number 2.
I mean, for me, this was a good movie with some fantastic performances, and I'm glad that I finally watched it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, though.
Well, it had a sad, depressing air about it, and my favorite part of the whole movie is when the jury finds for the plaintiff, and then they go, but is there a limit to how much we can give? That's
dude.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Well, we got to wrap this up. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about The Thing.
The Thing.
The Thing.
Must have been up all night thinking of that title.
Oh my God. And we're back.
We're back.
We're back. We're back. All right. We just talked about The Verdict, Sidney Lumet, Paul Newman. That was fun. That movie's dark. We talked a little bit on the break. Maybe a tough movie to rewatch over and over again, especially during a scary pandemic. But a great movie nonetheless. I'm glad we discussed it. The next movie we're going to be talking about is again from 1982, of course. It is John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. A little blurb from the IMDb summary. A research team in Antarctica is hunted by a shape-shifting alien that assumes the appearance of its victims. So we have Antarctica set up. Obviously, nothing is down on that motherfucker except for science bases from each country that has representation there. So obviously, we are following the U.S. perspective, and it opens with this wolf being chased by a helicopter. It leads to the U.S. camp. Shit starts hitting the fan because they realize that there is some kind of alien species that has been in Antarctica and is infiltrating different camps. And this thing can turn into and mimic any kind of molecular biology, and it starts taking over, and it's a pick 'em off movie. So we start having the entire team not sure who's been infected yet, and they get picked off one by one by one by one by one. It's one of those horror stories. It's maybe my favorite pick 'em off movies of all time. I fucking love this movie.
The thing I love about this is like it's well written in the fact that from the beginning you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like they're in a helicopter shooting at a wolf.
Yeah,
is it a wolf or a dog? Because they call them dogs throughout.
I think it's a half Malamute, half Husky.
Yeah, actually, I think it is a dog. You're right. I think it's a dog.
Yeah.
But like they're shooting at this dog. Sorry, and then they end up going like who is it? The
Norwegians?
Switzerland?
It's the Norwegians.
Oh, it's the Norwegians. Yeah, I should know it. But anyway,
they do that in the movie. They're like,
they do.
No, it's the Norwegians.
I didn't do that on purpose either. But they chase it right into the American camp, and you're like, what the fuck's going on? Why are they chasing this dog? Why they're throwing dynamite at this dog? They're trying to kill this dog, and you're like, I hate these guys. And they land and they get out and they start like screaming at them in Norwegian, and someone actually did a translation, and the actual translation of what they're yelling is, what are you doing? That's not a dog. Get the fuck away from it, you idiot, or something to that effect. Like they're literally if you understood Norwegian, the movie's blown for you. But that's how it begins, and you're like, why are these guys trying to kill this dog? And they take this dog in, and as it turns out, not good. And that dog is one of the best fucking actors in the film.
You know what? It's
Probably.
actually not. It's actually Daniel Day-Lewis in character as a
Oh,
dog.
it's Daniel Day-Lewis in a dog suit. Of course. I should have known.
Yeah, it was From My Left Dog. Yes, it's Daniel
My
Day-Lewis.
left dog. I mean, that dog acting was incredible. The pauses it took. I cannot believe
And it didn't
the
eyeball the
performance they
camera
got out of
once.
that fucking dog.
Like,
I mean, you could
All right,
tell
so-
that dog was weird. Something was weird about that dog.
Dog was
so,
that dog was
absolutely,
touched.
yeah.
yeah.
But it was.
So
was
let's
amazing.
jump right into it. Like I said, I love this movie. I like John Carpenter. I know some people, especially some people from my generation, because I think most of his success happened in the late 70s, 80s. And people in the 90s who grew up with me maybe remember him from The Vampires, his later stuff. And I like his earlier stuff more. So it wasn't until I watched Escape from LA, The Fog, The Thing, that I started really getting obsessed with him. But I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. This is the first time he did not compose his original score. He got a pretty decent composer by the name of Ennio Morricone
Oh, who's that?
to step in. Ennio's score and this movie were destroyed at the box office.
The score was nominated for a Razzie.
It was nominated for a Razzie. The movie was nominated.
Fun little piece of trivia on IMDb that I found. They didn't use all of the music that he wrote for this film, and he later used some of that music in The Hateful Eight.
Hateful Eight, yeah, I saw that.
And it won an Oscar.
It won an Oscar, and of course, as anyone who has watched this movie, it's obvious. You hear that score, and John Carpenter's early scores too definitely have that electronic synthy influence.
Yeah.
Morricone just it might be even better than him. There would be no Hans Zimmer. There would be no people who use more percussive, kind of heartbeat style, ambient, soundscapey kind of stuff to like create tension underneath. He was not working with strings, and we hear it emulated all the time now in sci-fi. So fuck you, 1982 moviegoers who thought that this thing sucked. All of this was cutting edge.
It wasn't just them. I mean, there was a guy, Alan Spencer, worked for Starlog. He wrote the review that John Carpenter was never meant to direct science fiction horror movies. He's better suited to direct traffic accidents, train wrecks, and public floggings. That was
the fuck?
And I'm sorry to fall back on our earlier comment. Like, why is that even necessary? You've just reviewed, and I'm sorry, this did not age well because you've just reviewed what has become one of the biggest fucking cult classic films.
I know.
So why is this movie so good, you guys? Why do you love this movie?
Well, the thing about it is by the time this movie came out, John Carpenter was sort of a household name when it comes to horror movies. What year was Halloween? Was it 78 or was it more like 80?
I think it was 8, right?
Okay, 8. 78. And then, so he does this in 82, and anytime it's John Carpenter's Halloween or somebody else's movie, you'd know they've reached a certain level of notoriety. And I mean, this thing is suspenseful from the first frame. As you talk about the helicopters trying to kill the dog, and dog lovers are going, what are you doing? What are you trying to shoot that dog for? And then
fall out of the helicopter, you asshole. Yeah.
and then the helicopter lands, and the action and suspense starts, and you, the moviegoer, is going, what is so fucked up about this dog that it's got these people doing this? And then you're pulled into it, and
I mean, they blow up their own fucking helicopter.
Yeah, that's how desperate they are to kill the dog. And mustacheless Wilford Brimley, this is probably before he had diabetes, is in this thing, as and I mean, it was just a great cast.
Yes.
Kurt Russell, I'm sure they told him to grow a beard so he wouldn't look like he was 15, because he was very young in his career.
Apparently that took a year.
Yeah.
To grow that.
And they
beard.
I think they just wanted him to look different than Snake Plissken out of Escape, right? I mean, which was just a year before. So I want to ask you guys if this landed for you, because it sounds like it did, because you guys like this movie too. But my favorite thing about this movie, and I noticed it the first time when I was a kid, even before teenager, before I got into like filmmaking and started thinking about how the sausage was made, there is a weird paradox for this horror movie. And John Carpenter does it in his other stuff, but this is the best representation of it. The acting scenes because he uses a lot of special character makeup, which we'll get to in a moment.
Yeah.
The acting scenes are very slow paced. He takes his time. He lets his actors do their work, very similar to what we were talking about with The Verdict. There is no really intense jump with trying to create the point of view through the humans of how quickly and out of control the event is happening to them. He takes his time with that. And yet, unlike every other horror movie rule, he shows you everything about his monsters. He shows all of the details. He shows all of the gore. He doesn't really make you imagine too much about what's happening because he relies so heavily on special effects makeup. And it fucking works, dude. There are so many times where the rule is, don't show it, never show it until you absolutely have to show it. He figured out a balance.
I think in this case it works because he showed it and every incarnation of it is different. And this film builds on your paranoia of, everyone, including the lead fucking character, could be this thing. And you don't know which direction it's coming from.
You're right. So when it's the thing in its raw form and it's transforming, we can see it. He doesn't show it to us when it's possibly one of the humans that we don't know who has it yet.
It could be one person. It could be three people.
Right.
It could be two people and a dog. You don't know.
But see, I love this movie, and I absolutely agree with you on everything except I thought some of the gore stayed on the screen too long.
Okay.
I would have liked to have had a little more Hitchcock sense of quick flashes. Show me that grotesque creature, but get the camera off of it and let my mind do some extra work.
Let me go for work. Yeah.
But again, this is 1982. Creature effects were, relatively kind of new on the scene where they were able to do this much stuff. And I think there was a little bit of, hey, we got to showcase this. Whereas, as much as I loved it, a little bit of less is more would have, I think, made it more suspenseful because, the way they played all these scenes in the darkness inside this, station and then out on the snow in the darkness was just very creepy and effective to give you chills. But it was, it was good.
No, I totally agree with you. I guess for me, I've classified it in my mind more as a thriller than horror because he did choose to show us so much. So we weren't really sitting there. I wasn't anticipating actually getting scared from this movie, and I don't think I ever have been. But that's why it kind of sits in that place in between the thriller and the horror for me. It doesn't. Yeah. It's a John Carpenter film.
That one CPR scene gets me every time, but apart from that.
Oh yeah, where he opens his chest and yeah.
Holy fucking shit!
Good
so
job.
the real star of this movie is a special effects makeup artist named Rob Bottin.
Yeah,
who was 22 years old when he did this. You guys, he experienced a mental breakdown before the movie was finished because he was pushed so hard. 22.
I need to look and see.
Still appreciated 38 years later.
Yeah, I need to look on Google and see if he's the same guy that 7 years later would do a movie called Leviathan, where they had very similar type creatures that were, combined entities all together.
So he didn't do Leviathan. He didn't do Leviathan, but he did do The Fog and The Thing. But then he eventually did RoboCop. He did Basic Instinct, 7, the first Mission Impossible, Fight Club, the first remake of Charlie's Angels. So he stayed in the business for a while. You can definitely see his aesthetic. But you're right, Leviathan. It did remind me a lot of that creature makeup from those late.
It was just a great cast of people. None really big stars except for Kurt Russell. But a lot of great character actors. Richard Dysart, Richard Masur was in it as well. And I thought the characters played very well. Keith David was great.
Yes. I totally agree.
I don't know whether you noticed as well, cinematography-wise, they used a lot of diopters in this. The diopter lens is basically where it's a dual focus lens. So you have a person right in front of the camera in focus and a person in the extreme background in focus at the same time.
Like Orson Welles, who was the guy who did all his stuff? He was super obsessed with that, right? The long range focal length.
But they use them a lot for very.
And it's called a diopter.
It's called a diopter. Yeah.
I just learned something. See, I'm hanging around with smart people.
You're learning so much.
But anything that has diopter lenses, and I must admit I did not know that biologists used Atari 2600s for their simulations.
That simulation, that computer simulation, that graphic is so great. Look at that cell take over that other cell.
Yeah.
In super slow.
It's the opposite of the verdict. It's like, wait, this is pretty complex. We have to spell this out for the audience. Let's get an Atari. And
how about, I love the
chess
when he's
game.
playing his chess game at the beginning. He just fucking tears the computer apart.
Yeah, dumps his drink, his scotch into the guts of the computer.
Also, did Kurt Russell invent the pre-kill line? Like, and fuck you too, dynamite.
You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
You could just smell it coming, right?
Yeah.
What'd you think of I guess I kind of wanted to ask about the performances. You kind of already touched on it, Jack, but like
Well, they were very believable, and
they're super grounded. They were all seasoned actors. So often in the horror movie genre, you have young actors who are trying to cut their teeth and get into the business, and because people take chances as audience members on horror movies that they might not take on serious dramas or comedies. So this one in all of his movies stand out to me because he always casts people who are very good at what they do and they have careers under their belt. So again, you kind of go into it thinking a little bit differently about the movie. You're not anticipating just a hot girl running from a guy with a knife. There's going to be more to the scene work.
Well, you kind of felt the mistrust that they had for each other. You kind of felt that.
Oh yeah.
And in the whole movie, and self-preservation takes over for these people, and they're willing to do whatever they can to survive themselves. And that means if I don't know that you're not one of those things, and I'm going to point a gun at you. It was very in your face kind of.
I mean, there's two ways you can do these sort of films, and one is to let the audience in so that they know where the monster is, and it's how long till the other people find out, or how long till the kill happens. Or the other one is to put the audience in the same place as everyone else. It's like you don't know who the fucking monster is at any point. Any one of these things could turn into a killer.
Yeah.
And they went with the latter, and they put you in the same position as everyone in that station, and you felt it. They did it well. They did it really well.
One of my favorite scenes was the blood and the wire, the hot wire and the blood to see who was.
That is a famous scene. That is such a great,
so effective, so simple. There was Dave. I mean, we could make that movie. We could do that scene. Like that's super effective. It's just good storytelling. Did
you read the notes on the cinematography though, where they hinted at who it actually was? Like it foreshadowed it. Because one of the person that's actually the thing, their face is shadowed. It's not like everyone else has a full face.
When it shows the wide of all of them, sitting in all four of them, that's good.
There's like
just little subliminal hints.
Yeah,
I think one reason what you guys are saying worked for me so well is that with this whole thing of the seasoned actors, he also played against the whole. Let's establish really basic archetypes immediately to let the audience in on who these people are. I'm not saying that he didn't use some archetypes. Like you still had like the doctor, for a while you don't even know who the fuck is Kurt Russell. Like what's his job? Yeah. But there are enough of them. He's the pilot, like whatever the fuck, right? But there are enough people involved, and they're not super cliche archetypes. They're just. You just know that they need each other at the beginning. So I also felt like there was a little bit more complexity because I was relying on this group of people to get through this, and I didn't have any judgment for any of them yet because one of them was the dumb jock or the hot slutty cheerleader or the things that we usually see very quickly in slasher movies. So it was fun watching him break down their relationships and for us to get to know these individuals as the picking off and the breaking down was happening in real time. We were learning who they were as it was happening, as opposed to a very quick establishment.
And the funny thing is, if you break it down to like horror film rules, where like, for instance, Cabin in the Woods, where you have like the whore, the last girl, the nerd, fool, that sort of thing, they threw all of that out the window.
That's what I'm saying.
And just put everyone in an Arctic station and just made it work.
Yeah.
Yes, I thought it worked. And what again, I have not seen the original, so I don't know if they do this in the original, but I thought it was so effective to the first point of view that I felt attached to was, we just made fun of it, but it's when the doctor is finally seeing the cells attack the other cells. And the first point of view is the doctor's, the most sane scientific mind there. and he is the one who leaves us first.
Yes.
We immediately have his point of view, and then it is taken away from us very quickly. I loved that. I thought that was so effective because once again, I thought I was finally getting some footing, and they took it away from me.
In the
I
original,
knew there was this thing in there, but
in the original, though, it's not a entity that can take over and morph, into somebody else. It's literally just a creature, which is James Arness wrapped up like a mummy, basically, who is terrorizing the people in this Arctic station just because he's an alien, and you really don't know that much about him. But it's 1951. It's black and white. It's very scary and mysterious for that particular time, predating the Twilight Zone and stuff like that. But it's an interesting watch. If you should go back and do the. And it was called.
I didn't realize till we watched this that there would it was a remake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said last week. You said not the remake. This is the remake of the original.
But I meant the remake. I meant the remake of the remake.
Oh, the remake of the remake.
Yeah, 1951. It was called The Thing, and then in smaller font, From Another World. Underneath it was the
subtext.
They
From Another
subtitled
World.
it. Yeah, but this was, and apparently there was another short story, Who Goes There, a novella by John W. Campbell. That was also the basis for the script for this particular John Carpenter film. So I'll have to check that out as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look that up as well because the fact of the matter is arguments are still happening over this film. They still do screenings of this film. They still do Q&As of this film, and one of the biggest questions everyone still gets asked is which one, at the end, is one of them a thing? And these arguments are still happening 38 years later. And
there we go.
Oh, we got a gusher. He gushed himself. You just gave yourself that fucking.
I had to. Motherfucker. Evil hand, man. It does its own thing.
But
well, let's do a little bit of it right now. Do you guys think one of them is the fucking thing?
Even.
I actually think they're both. I think they're both clean. I think that's the way I took it, was that they both they were sitting there and sharing a bottle of booze. They were too exhausted to do anything but just sit there in the cold. And that said to me, they're the only two left, and the thing and everybody that was infected by it has died. And until I did the research for this film, I didn't realize people hated it. Yeah. I've never met anybody who didn't love John Carpenter's The Thing. Yeah. It's.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
It developed a cult. They hated Blade Runner too. That came out in the same year. Yeah. And then they both developed a cult classic.
Yeah.
Following,
which is so touching because I read that John Carpenter said this was his favorite film that he made, and it hurt him the worst.
Yes.
When people canned it, and I'm always curious. I wish I knew one of these directors at that level that had that exact circumstance happen to them. What does it feel like to have it completely rejected, and then over time to know that for a small group of people, they are fucking obsessed with it? It's their favorite cult classic. It's their one that they think of.
I feel like it'd go from absolute disappointment and loss of faith in yourself to yes, vindication, to oh my god, will you shut up about who's still the thing at the end?
Yeah.
Because I went down the rabbit hole looking this up. There are competing theories. There's a theory that because he was making Molotov cocktails, the bottle that he actually handed him at the end is full of gasoline, and the thing wouldn't know that and drank it and went yum, and so he knows that it's the thing. And there's all these competing theories.
That's good.
And then they go back and
that's good.
The 2011 film, which is a prequel apparently, establishes that it can't mimic jewelry. And they're like, well, he can't be the thing because he still has his earring in. And there's all these arguments that everyone's formed this whole fucking mythology about this thing. And honestly, isn't that what makes?
That's what makes film great. Yeah.
Yeah.
If people care enough about it to make up stuff and add stuff to the story. Look at Roddenberry and Star Trek. That was a flop, got canceled, and then you guys did a whole series on the franchise. So
yeah.
See, I listen to everything.
essentially, if you
Sci-fi.
make
Yeah.
if you make a movie and it's still getting like midnight screenings and drive-in screenings and whatever screenings like 38 years later, and people are still in Q&A arguing over who was the thing at the end, like, you've done your job.
Yeah.
Yes. And why is it almost always sci-fi and horror that get these kind of intense cult followings? Like, what do you think it is about the fear and this thing that we get obsessed with of never knowing the
it's 'cause they
answer and
leave
we
you
have to fight with
hanging.
each other?
Yeah, and I think some critics have their head up their ass, and you know, if it's
Yeah.
not as
I'm not
If
even going to
it's-
buzz that.
if it's not something if it's not something that is, you know, impactful for the future of mankind as a film, they pan it. When it you know, you go to the movie, what is it, you suspend your disbelief and you watch a film and you're entertained by it, and like I said, if the popcorn, Diet Coke, some goobers,
Yeah.
I'm out of there.
If Daniel Day-Lewis had played this dog, this movie would be heralded as a cinematic
It would be
achievement.
fantastic.
Like,
Yes.
They needed, like, honestly, like, no, I agree with you. It took, I'm drinking.
A left-footed dog playing a
It would've-
piano, it would have been
a
awesome.
left-footed paraplegic dog. He was her in the verdict in the bed, and he's the dog.
And they would have been so much better dressed as well.
No, but you're right. I feel like we talked about Exorcist not too long ago,
Jesus.
Yes,
and it
you
kind of
did.
ties into our conversation with Wolf of Wall Street last week. Like the Exorcist conversation, that was a big deal because it kind of broke that mold of letting horror into the, okay, we can take this seriously kind of cinema. And then you have the Wolf of Wall Street they were talking about last week, where we were talking about, look, whether or not you like it, no one can say this is not well made and super entertaining and
Oh,
compelling.
it was very entertaining, and
would
I
argue-
can't believe you guys didn't talk about the wee people scene in the office where they were throwing.
Oh my God, yeah, the very
midgets in
serious
the-
conversation about that.
we glossed over that. Yeah.
But
I
with this,
figured we'd leave
thing,
that as a surprise for everyone.
that thing
I
is
was
so
waiting
fucked up.
on you
It's
to talk
incredible.
about that part, and it never
It's
happened. And I went, "The
incredible. I know,
bastards."
it's so good. But with the thing, it's like a perfect example of like, I know some people might first viewing, second viewing, they might not say, look, this is The Exorcist. I know what they mean when they say that, but I still think it is in that world of a serious suspense thriller horror element genre kind of movie. And it is also so incredibly entertaining. This is one of those, as somebody who was not alive when this movie came out, I do not understand how this was panned. I would even say this. I understand how Blade Runner was equally less negatively received. I do not understand how The Thing was negatively received. It seems too accessible. It seems too entertaining. There's nothing too
If
weird
your butt
about
stays
it.
tight through the most of the movie, it's a good horror movie. That's the way I look at it.
So tell me, when you went to go see it, I assume you saw it in the theaters, and
I
maybe
saw
you
it
had
in
some friends who saw it at the
in
time.
a packed theater.
Yeah.
With friends, and it was like, it was a similar experience to Halloween. Everybody cheered when the thing got blown up, or anytime the what do you call it, flamethrower. Anytime the flamethrower got turned on,
Why
people
the fuck do
cheered.
those scientists have flamethrowers?
I mean, really. There we go.
There's one for every scientist too. They all have their own.
Got to have a flamethrower.
But basically, you're saying, that's what I was asking. There weren't non-critics. There weren't moviegoers who saw it who talked shit about it, right? It was just a critical response.
Just a critical thing, because I never met anybody
Dave buzzed those
that
fucking
hated
critics,
it.
dude.
That's why I said.
Take that,
Fuck you,
critics.
I don't. Yeah,
I
I'm so
enjoyed
glad
it.
you told me that. I
mean,
wanted to ask you.
I watched it this afternoon so it would be fresh, and
Also,
I
you
got a
need a
little-
palate cleanser for Grease too.
yeah.
Oh.
And I loved
Yeah,
it.
we're
I mean,
close.
I got into it again. It just the time flew by because I was like, yeah, this really. I forgot how good this movie was.
Yeah, it's a well-known film. All right, so I think we've established. Yeah, you should probably see both these movies.
Absolutely. Two good ones. Once again, 1982 pumped out at least two good ones. There's some other great ones. These
Yeah.
two are worth watching, you guys.
If you haven't seen E.T., well, I mean, seriously, what the fuck are you doing? But yeah, see these others as well.
Oh, no. All right. So we are going to do our usual bit before we get to our conversation about Grease 2, which we're all a little nervous about and excited about at the same time. It's very confusing.
I
We
might
are
lose
going
some
to
friends
do-
on Facebook over this one. I don't know.
we're gonna do our usual. If Dave is ready, we're
I'm
gonna
ready. Yeah,
do our
let's-
random number generator. We're gonna try to
let's,
find our next year. Let's do it.
I mean, I have this sound effect so that because we couldn't get the rights to ZZ Top songs. Oh,
The great effect.
Please don't be in the 2000s. Please
it
be
is,
older than.
It is.
Oh damn it! God, we do so many 2000s.
It's 2001.
2001, not the Stanley Kubrick masterpiece, but the year 2001.
The actual year.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We are going to chit chat about what the fuck we want to do next week, and then we're going to be right back. It's going to be fun. For Grease 2, Jesus Christ, who's that guy? Fuck me.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And we're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back. Oh my God.
Strap yourselves in, kids.
Yeah, you
Lord
need
of
to
mercy.
strap in or strap on for this one.
That was fucking crazy. We just had a weird conversation about the movies of 2001 that we will let you know about at the very end. What an interesting year. We're going to talk about it at the end of this episode. We're going to tell you what we're going to be doing next
Yeah.
week. But for right now, we have done our stretches. We have got 2 more beers or wine in front of us. We are ready to talk about the cinematic atrocity that is Grease 2.
Drinking just on the title.
Oh
That's how you know it's
my
really bad.
God.
Didn't even make it into the fucking segment. I mean, come on.
Christ.
Oh my Lord, have mercy! I watched.
I have to make an opening statement. May I
Tell me.
make an opening statement?
Yes, tell me.
There's some things you shouldn't do, and that's make sequels of certain movies. One is The Sting. Sorry,
Mhm.
Jackie Gleason, but we didn't need number 2.
Mhm.
Jaws. The first one was quite sufficient. The second one was not horrible, but it was totally unnecessary to make. And Grease, fucking Grease, stood alone as far
it did.
as a movie musical. And why in the world you'd come back and make this atrocious piece of shit?
I mean, hey, drink your fucking wine.
I guess by that
Absolutely.
time Robert Stigwood had enough money.
I mean,
That's two.
all right,
Sorry.
keep going if you want to keep going. I just want to hear you guys talk about this.
Dude,
Dave,
seriously,
Dave,
Yeah.
seriously, like I tuned in this, and it starts with the original characters, the 2 administration teachers trying to put the
Yeah.
flag up, and then
That
there's
would be Eve
this
Arden, yeah.
scream of tires and a crash, and then it launches into the opening number. I'm like, did a fucking bus crash just happen at the beginning of this movie? Like, are all these kids dead? Are they all ghosts this whole movie? And it's like,
Dave, you're describing a better movie. What you're doing is describing. I would be interested in watching that movie.
I have a problem with movie musicals to start with. Okay,
Me
musicals
too.
on. I'm sitting in a theater watching a stage play, and there's music and dancing and singing. That seems natural to me. But people walking down the street breaking into song with full soundtrack doesn't seem normal to me. Now, I said that to my wife, and she went, "Oh, sure, but teleporting down to the planet from the Enterprise it seems normal to you." And I went,
your
yes.
wife has to drink.
I
Yeah,
said,
Carla,
yes.
drink.
Yes, it does. It certainly does. Seems quite normal to me.
I completely agree. Let me just say that ahead of time. Jeff, the other co-host of this show who's not with us tonight, and I met as majors in music theater in
Yes.
college. So we both have talked about this before too. I don't think he feels quite as passionate as I do. I really struggle with movie musicals. It lands okay for me if it's done really well on stage. I have a
Chicago
huge
is an
appreciation for that
exception.
medium. But there are a handful of movie musicals
Mhm.
that work for me. Most of them do not. So if it's a bad movie musical, it's going to be one of my least favorite experiences ever. It just feels forced. It feels
Right.
out of
Now, the
place. I
first-
feel like I'm.
Yeah. The original Grease worked for me. I
Me
think
too.
just because it was fun and the characters were great and the music was fantastic. Way better, by the way, than this music.
Way fucking better. Way fucking better. Yeah, let's drink, baby. Let's do
Was
it.
this music?
I'm
That's
glad,
the question I
Jack.
have.
I'm glad you started because that was all I was thinking about. Was the first thing you said. There are some movies that
You just don't touch.
should never be remade as a remade, or should never have a sequel.
Right.
And what is that for you guys? Why do you think that's true? Why are there some stories that land so kind of like the first Grease in such an absurd, random way that it just works? Some of them are horror movies that should never be touched again. The first
Grease worked because someone wrote a book and someone wrote some songs that were phenomenal. They spent years writing them, and it worked as a musical. They transferred it to a film, and it worked as a film. Now, I don't want to suggest that the writer of this particular film does prison time, but if I had access to a time machine and a pound of coke, I'd go back and plant some fucking evidence. I can tell you that.
There you go.
Sadly, I don't have a time machine.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the best lines I've heard all night.
Fuck you, Ken Finkelman and Jim Jacob. I mean, you guys.
No,
so I read,
but like, it was all Finkelman. The other guys were just the characters they recycled for this one.
You know what? And Ken Finkelman, let's not even hit on him too hard, because I was reading about this. This movie has slimy producers trying to exploit the success of the first one written all over it.
Sure.
Patricia Birch and Ken Finkelman did not have a finished script when they started this.
Yeah, they didn't. No.
They didn't even have a chance.
That's why
Frenchie
disappears halfway through the movie because they decided to write her out.
Yeah. So this was just one of those times where they were so obviously, and you know what? This is what bothers me about movies. Maybe it's a little bit different for people who are younger than us, who are coming up nowadays in this whole television generation. But for a long time, movies were kind of divided into two things. There were the sell out the movies, like big blockbuster things, which could still be super successful and entertaining. I'm not saying there's anything negative about that, but people knew they were making a lot of money in that part of Hollywood production. And then there was like the other half, like The Verdict and stuff, that were really serious, character-driven dramas that won Oscars. This is one of those examples that gives both of those things a terrible fucking name. It's when a slimy producer or production house decides, let's fucking keep jacking off that first one. Let's make as much money as we possibly fucking can. It doesn't matter what we put on screen, because people are going to come in and see it, and people are stupid. And nothing bothers me more than when they think an audience is dumb enough not to realize it sucks. So congratulations, audiences of 1982, for realizing that this is a piece of shit and realizing that the thing is awesome.
At this point, it wasn't Grease. It was Screwballs, the musical.
Yeah.
Only Screwballs was better written.
Grease.
Like,
do you guys also think that I'm not picking on the actors. Like, it's not their fault. But there was something very magical about the quality of performance from Travolta and Olivia Newton-John.
Yes.
And, several of the other, what's her name?
And Stockard Channing.
Stockard Channing, thank you. There was some really quality talent. So even if you're not a musical person and you sat down for the first Grease, you kind of have to be taken away a little bit and have respect for the quality and level of singing ability and acting ability that didn't exist as consistently in this.
Even when they did Grease live as a performance on TV networks,
NBC
it was like that still worked. Like,
it's just a better show
as a production. Yeah, it still worked. Yeah,
and I don't think it's a coincidence that Grease in 1978 followed the very end of the disco craze, where dancing was very, very popular and a big deal. And Robert Stigwood had all his success with, Saturday Night Fever and the Bee Gees' success. And so a lot of that carried through into Grease, even though the eras were different. It was all about fun and dancing and music, and that was
they crossed that with the 80s films that were all about getting with the girl and like nailing the girl and that sort of thing. And
but why do we know that Grease is a good movie? Because I totally agree with what you both just said, but that's why it's proof. There was a momentum going into it, and yet it stands the test of time. It stood alone from Saturday Night Fever and from those other kinds of 80s movies that had a very similar kind of plot. Because it's just better. Because everything about it is more interesting than this piece of shit that opens with this number.
He was a little late on that one, but I knew it was coming.
This number at the very beginning they do this thing that music theater does sometimes. I'm very judgmental of music theater because I
It's an
care so much about
ensemble
that
number.
medium. It has one of those ensemble numbers at the beginning that pimps you in to being on board for singing and dancing. It doesn't even try to get into it organically. It doesn't even try to kind of surprise you with how it develops into song. It just
Yeah.
says we're singing
That
and
was
dancing,
blatant.
and there's 150 of us. Fuck you
Yeah.
if you don't like it.
And we're all
And
in
nobody
unison,
liked it.
so take
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
Patricia Birch, who was the director, was the choreographer from Grease.
Poor Patricia Birch, dude.
Yeah.
She did not want to make this movie.
Yeah.
I feel bad for
no,
her.
she did. She stood in and she directed this, but it was the last thing she ever directed.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like she was like, maybe I can make a good movie, and then she had no tools to make a good movie. She didn't even know what she was making when she was making.
I mean, if you start making a movie and you don't have a script until like halfway through, then yeah, someone has hobbled you.
yeah, I mean, there are
yeah.
examples of that. Ridley Scott has often gone into production without finishing a script, but he's got enough weight,
But Ridley Scott was
With
writing
his
the
name-
script, right?
I was gonna say, yeah, he had so much influence in those productions, and they had so many amazing people around them, and most of them were not remakes of some random cult classic, that he was able to act on his feet a little bit. This was, I don't know, the more I read about this, the more I just felt like this is kind of a tragedy, because I feel like everybody involved was hoping it was going to be something really significant like the first one,
Like a
and
cash
it didn't
cow.
turn out that way for anyone. Yeah, except for
Riding the
God
wave
bless
of-
Michelle Pfeiffer. That is the
How
only
fucking
good thing
hot.
about
Yeah,
this
a
movie.
lot
How
of-
fucking
lot of
hot
the
is
times,
Michelle
yes. I
Pfeiffer in
mean,
this movie? Oh
Let's
my
just
God.
focus on Cool Rider for a second. I mean, seriously, when they were writing the song, it's like, what rhymes with forever? I know, forever.
Forever.
And I'm sorry, when we got to the end of it, and they started spelling out Cool Rider.
Yeah,
My wife, my wife yells from the other room, She hasn't even. She sat through 35 minutes of this film. We got to Cool Rider. She's gone, and
Yep.
from the other room, I hear this song brought to you by Sesame Street.
Honestly, dude. RITER. I was like, there were
Like,
several
what the fuck
times.
are you doing? Oh, okay.
There were several times when I was watching this where I literally I said out loud, let's just tell our audience real fast. Jack sent us a video of him watching this, and his dog was on the couch with him
Barking at the
howling
TV. Oh
at
my
this
God.
terrible
Dog did
piece of shit
not
movie.
Oh,
like
that dog hate.
What song was that?
I think it was Who's That Guy? It was
Who's
that
that
one.
guy?
Yeah. Who's that guy? God.
Oh, you
man.
mean where they had a motorbike joust,
Yes, that one.
and then he jumps a police car without a fucking ramp? Yeah, great.
That was it.
Jack, what was it like when this movie came out, dude? Did people fucking, unlike The Thing,
Nobody
did people go see
cared.
it?
Nobody cared.
gave a shit?
No.
I'm
Nah.
hurting in this segment.
Listen, Greece was so big in of itself. And when people saw the poster and realized that, oh, Grease 2, but wait, where's John Travolta and where's Olivia Newton-John? They're not in it? Okay, never mind.
Apparently,
Never
they
fucking
came in
mind,
for
right?
meetings and then just walked away.
Yeah,
I read one meeting. They had one
Yeah.
meeting, and then they.
Yeah. I never wasted my time with it. Saw it much later, maybe on VHS or maybe the first couple of years of DVD. I saw it and went, I didn't miss anything.
I saw this
Yeah.
shit when it first came out.
Oh,
Ew, dude. How old were you when that happened? How old you were like a little kid?
I was like 10.
You're like, I want to see number 2, and then you
Yeah.
saw it. And your 10-year-old self was like, "Fuck this fucking."
And I didn't
Fuck
go.
this shit.
I didn't go back to musicals until Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah.
what else did Maxwell Caulfield do?
Maxwell Caulfield.
He was the guy
was-
that played the lead against Michelle Pfeiffer. And
Oh, he
Not
didn't,
much
he,
is the
yeah.
answer.
Yeah, he didn't do. He complained a lot that it's killed his career for like 10 years. But
Yeah,
Career
apparently
he
killer,
was in
he blames
Dynasty
this.
or something, wasn't he?
He was in Empire Records. He had a small role in that.
mhm.
That
was
that
in,
was his comeback.
Yeah, that was like kind of a reboot for him. He was in Dynasty. He was in some random show called The Colbys, just some TV.
Well, the Colbys was a Dynasty spinoff. So,
Okay.
Dynasty
okay.
had a
Yeah.
spin-off? Jesus.
yes.
I mean, he
But,
never got it back.
We should talk about Chris McDonald getting his career launched by being in this movie.
Yep.
And he's turned into a great comedic actor, and like Happy Gilmore, and
He did.
he plays.
I mean, he even
I
had
eat
the
pieces of shit like you for
Shooter!
breakfast.
Shooter
I mean,
McGavin.
does he just
You
point
eat
at
pieces
shit
of
in
shit for
every movie?
breakfast?
I mean, of course, that's all I thought about. And I remember thinking, like,
I can't see him as anyone
this
else.
guy,
Yeah,
he is Shooter. I mean,
he
he
is
is
Shooter
Shooter
McGavin always.
But like,
always.
he was in this movie and he was like, I made it. Like, everyone who was in this movie was thinking, like, this is it. Everyone's going to come see this movie.
Mhm.
And my entire career is about to explode. And there
Yeah.
were two people who were not intensely negatively affected
Right.
by this movie. Guess
Him
it's
and
kind of like
Michelle
the Star
Pfeiffer.
Wars
Yeah.
syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
it
tell you
was-
what, this
What do you
is this is the hardest redemption I've had since the Hellboy remake, and that had at least 2 good lines in it.
That was rough.
I think I
let's just talk
texted you.
about... Go for it. What are you saying? Jack?
I was going to say, if you'll recall, I texted you when you first sent this out, and I went,
Yeah.
trying to redeem this movie is kind of like raising the Titanic, which we know is in pieces on the ocean floor. And I
Yep.
just don't think they're going to get that up, and I don't think we can get this up.
And after watching
It's
this
not-
movie,
you know how
I couldn't
even-
get it up either.
My wife, who's very forgiving when it comes to movies, she'll say, "Oh, that was okay." She said, "I'm going to bed." She didn't even
I'm going
finish
to
it.
bed. This is
She's going, "This
because
is horrible."
unlike some other bad movies,
There'll be
this
some
just gets
paperwork on the
worse.
table for you to sign tomorrow, but I'm going to bed right now.
I'm going to bed. Yeah.
You guys, I didn't think it was going to get any worse until they got to the luau
Oh yeah.
at the end of
Yeah.
this motherfucker.
Dude, no, seriously, the luau is the only song that is reminiscent of the Grease themes.
Well, buzz yourself because that's fucking terrible. I fucking hated it. And then I feel like the luau was as bad as it got for me. I was like, this could not get any worse. And then he's standing on top of some like fucking tiki hut.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
In a
The luau is
sleeveless
worse than
fuck
Let's
like-
Do It for Our Country.
That is fucked up. I mean, there was
It's-
so much fucked up.
I know,
shit.
like, there's a line in that, like, it's like we're doing it for Disneyland.
Oh my God.
What the fuck?
Okay, so let's tie it back since we talked about it in this episode. Let's tie it back. Grease clearly, the original one even, Grease clearly has some questionable things and themes that they play with that still to this day don't bother me quite as much because they had that satirical tongue in their cheek. They knew the absurdity of what they were doing. It was silly and they were messing with that stuff through ridiculous positive song and dance. And it never ultimately bothered me. Those things did not land for me this time. So, like our conversation with Paul Newman punching the
Right.
shit
Yeah.
out of Charlotte in The Verdict, the
Right.
shit in this movie made me squirm a lot more
Yeah.
than
I mean, how do
Grease
you
one.
how do you top Frankie Avalon doing Beauty School Dropout? You can't do it,
Mhm.
so you don't try. You know, that's why
No, it
some
just
movies
didn't
shouldn't be.
And I'm
Some
sorry,
movies shouldn't have
one of
sequels.
these, the main song that the talent show the girls were singing sounded a lot like Freddie My Love remixed.
Yeah, there were a lot of songs in this that sounded like other popular songs from the
Yeah.
From Grease.
yeah.
Yeah.
But they were definitely not as good. Once again, they did it and they bookended it. The opening, I was saying, it pimped me into like, get on board. The ending, I felt like they were like, remember that great We Go Together song from Greece? Well, we're going to try to shove another one down your fucking throat, whether you want it or not. And it's not going to be as good. And we're going to keep
it
modulating
wasn't
the
even a
key,
good song.
and it's never going to end.
Ugh.
And we're going to have a 38-year-old guy be the nemesis of random people in this film.
Why is he why is that guy in this movie, dude?
He was in the original. He was
Yeah,
back from the
I know he
original,
was in the
although I
original,
can't
but,
think
like,
of his name.
Was, and like,
Dee Dee Khan was back, Eve Arden, and Sid Caesar.
Sid
So
Caesar
they
was
they
back.
got like the supporting cast to make an appearance, but they couldn't get. I don't know that they even tried to get the. Well, sure they tried. Of course they
they
did.
tried, but no.
So the rule of music theater, for anyone who gives a fuck, is that apparently, whether it's with comedy and absurdly drawn out or sincerely done dramatically, when characters can no longer discuss
bad
something.
segment.
Don't even buzz yourself. Don't even buzz yourself. You don't deserve
When
it.
they can no longer discuss something, they break into song. So I'm trying to think of my most quintessential moment where I was like, this is going against the rule and it's just bad filmmaking. The reproduction song. There is a scene in this movie where there is a new teacher who is trying to teach the facts of life to this group of fucking high school students that first of all should have known what fucking happens.
Was that Connie Stevens? Was
that
that her? Yeah, I think that was Connie Stevens doing that. Yeah.
They start singing about a song called Reproduction, and it's very cliche about a pistil and flower and pollination. And it is just a perfect example of how, if I was in that cutting room, I'd be like, cut. Like this does absolutely nothing to move our story forward. It progresses none of our characters.
No, it falls
it's not
into
even a
the
good
Screwballs
song.
reference I made before.
Yeah, exactly. It's just inherently, it's masturbatory music theater. Like we just want to have them singing on screen and thrusting their pelvises and making sexual innuendo. But it's not clever. It doesn't do anything for the story. You guys, I'm trying really hard to redeem this movie. I'm trying to
can't even buzz that.
Wow. I
Like,
think you should put the
positive.
gushing theme. He's gushing. He's trying his best.
He's
to
gushing.
No, this is the call them like it is. We need to call them like it is, Lam.
He's trying to save a bad
That
movie.
bothered me.
I
What's
drank
wrong
so
with
much
him?
during the last week segment.
What do you do? Were there any things that you guys like that? Was there anything that you were able to at least think to yourself, if they had changed this, could have worked. If they had done this differently, it maybe could have worked better. Was there anything in this movie that you felt like that, or was it just incessant wrong?
One thing. No, it was like from scene to scene, people's like character changed and people's performance changed, and there's no one thing that redeems any of this.
I would have to disagree. I think if they had chosen a different bowling alley.
It's just, you know what? Yeah, the only fucking problem with this movie is the bowling alley. That's another number. Jack, I'm so glad you said that, dude. That number, what the fuck is that number doing in this fucking
We're
movie,
gonna
dude?
score tonight. Yeah, again, Screwballs. It's the Screwballs / Porky's thing that happened in the 80s.
I'm hurting.
It was just not endearing at all. There was nothing about it. But you're right. The only problem with this movie is the bowling alley. That's what.
Fix that, and you'll fix the movie.
That scene bothered me a lot as well. That was my second example of what's wrong with this, is that they didn't play by the rules. There was no reason for that number to be in this movie. I could even understand why there was the reason. There was the reason for some of the
I'm
other
leaving
numbers.
that in because, quite frankly, there's been a lot of buzzers.
There was a reason for some of the others to be in there. Even the early number, Back to School or whatever the fuck it's called. I understand why the number was there. It just wasn't earned. It wasn't justified, but I understand story-wise why they wanted a song to have people go back to Greece, like back to the high school, back to this thing. It just wasn't executed well. But there were 3 or 4 musical numbers in this movie that literally did not progress the story or tell us anything about character, on top of being just shitty songs. So I just don't. There were just so many examples.
Well, they picked the wrong title.
That.
First of all, it should have been Mission Impossible. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Dave, tell me one redemption quality you could say about this movie. Give me something. Give me something that you enjoyed about it, or that was okay, or that you could have wanted to be better. Or
the actor who played Johnny,
committed
100%.
It was Johnny.
Like, as far as he was concerned, this was his fucking breakout. He was going for it. He was going to make it.
Oh, that was Chris McDonald. That was Chris McDonald's character.
And where did he end up?
The guy who played. Wait. Johnny is Goose? Hold on a second. Who is? Oh wait, yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, you don't remember the characters? You blocked this out already.
It's Christopher McDonald.
Hold on a second. Which one is Johnny?
It's Shooter McGavin. That's who he's talking about.
It is Shooter, right? Yeah. He was really excited.
Yeah, he was committed to the role,
and he took a risk.
He did,
and they failed. I mean, they committed everything to this thing. He had all like the bass lines, like the speaky. reproduction. Like,
The only redemption
like,
is looking at Michelle Pfeiffer for 90 minutes or less. That's the only redemption.
I mean, let's be real. That is
Yeah.
That is just proof in the pudding that everybody talks about the it factor, the thing, whatever fucking weird vocabulary you want to use to say whenever you look at someone and just realize they've got a lot of talent and I don't mind anything they do. They could take a shit on stage and it's still interesting. Michelle Pfeiffer somehow does not bother me in this movie.
Yeah.
Like there's this, she's, even though she's singing, what's that?
Bad songs.
Cool Rider and that ridiculous fucking, when she thinks he's dead from the bike at the end.
Yeah, I'm like, they just technically killed a guy and everyone's kind of forgiving about that.
Let's go to a luau.
Yeah.
Let's go to a luau.
All right. We've touched on this enough. I mean, we tried to redeem
I want to put the radiation hazardous waste warning on the cover of this movie. Do not rewatch this movie. Do not watch this. I don't care, dude. Fuck it.
Don't do it.
Do y'all disagree? Are you gonna?
No one is disagreeing with you. We failed at redeeming this.
We did fail at redeeming this. I'm really sorry. All right, so
moving on.
That was Jack. I'm sorry we had you on for two great movies and one really terrible movie that we couldn't have a
Jack
super
enjoyed
conversation.
I did. I had a blast, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And
Jeff, I wish I could be here the next time, maybe, and have everybody present. That would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We're definitely going to have you back. Right. This is way too much fun. I think Jeff would have way too much fun with you as well. I kind of want to hear you guys just talk to each other and go back and forth. So we chose the year, or we didn't choose. We never choose. It is a real random number generator.
Yes.
Dave, what year does it go back to? Because everyone, in case you don't believe it actually goes back to the beginning of movies, what year is that number generator?
I started 1970.
We got to go back further. We got to go back further than 1970.
We're going to go back to, well, I started in 1960 and then we got some weird shit. So like,
no, I'm going to argue for the 50s, but it doesn't fucking matter.
Okay, sure. Next week I'll go back to 50s.
I'm excited. There's some good movies in the 40s and 50s. We were chosen by his fucking computer 2001. And I'm going to be honest, film fans, I dare you to take a look and Google movies of 2001. This is the first year that we have been disappointed by. I'm not gonna lie, there are usually at least 10 movies where we're like, holy shit, this is a great movie year. This was not one of those years. The big movies that year were A Beautiful Mind, Training Day, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring,
which we've covered.
Which we've already talked about. Mulholland Drive was a big one. Ridley Scott's Hannibal was fun. Donnie Darko, cult classic. But honestly, this was a weird year. There were not tons and tons of selections. So
we went foreign this year.
We went foreign. Yeah. Dave, what are we going to be doing? We're going to go
We're doing Amélie.
Amélie by Jean-Pierre Roulet.
Really should have covered before now.
Jean-Pierre Jeunet. What a film. I'm so excited to rewatch
Devil's Backbone.
Guillermo del Toro's, I think it's his second feature, The Devil's Backbone, which I'm very excited to rewatch. And our third redemption movie,
Vanilla Sky, which was quite divisive. We'll see what happens.
Cameron Crowe taking a shot. You may know Cameron Crowe from Almost Famous. And what's the other Tom Cruise one?
Oh, I don't
about those. Yeah, you do the sports agent that falls in love with
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry
Maguire. This guy makes nostalgic movies, and this is his stab at another one. Everybody
throw me out half a
movie,
plot. I can name the film. It's like my gift.
So we're going to be talking about those three movies next week, and we're very excited.
And we
Jack Daniel.
Given that it's 2001, we'll have some hints of Crocodile Dundee in LA come through. I'm sure.
Yeah, somehow that movie snuck through, and we didn't get to talk about it, but we're very excited to watch it. And
I may make some references.
any reference to Crocodile Dundee is always welcome.
Haha.
Can we all give it up for Jack Daniel, please? That was fucking awesome.
Thank you.
having
I had
you
a
on the
great
podcast.
time.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Fans of the
Our
podcast
first-
and anytime a fan gets to be a part of the thing, that's a big deal.
The thing. You see
The
how he
thing with
worked
the stuff.
a title of one of the
Thing.
movies
Yeah.
into the episode? This
That
is a
was
professional
smooth.
we're dealing with. Thank you so much
way
for
more
joining us. We're
professional than
definitely
we
going to
are.
have you on again.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Fuck yeah. Go watch your movies. We're excited. We're going to be back here next week. Jeff is going to rejoin us, and we are definitely going to have Jack Daniel on again. Thank you for tuning in.